It's one of those college football games that I look forward to watching every year, regardless of the records, regardless of the situation. I look forward to, as a purist who loves traditional college football, Notre Dame and Michigan. They meet in South Bend this weekend, and we bring in Joshua Henschke of Maize and Brew. And Josh, we got Michigan-Notre Dame, and regardless of the records, once again, it's just a battle of the ages. The two most storied programs, at least in regards to all-time victories, meeting in South Bend for the last time possibly in quite a while. Your breakdown of the game and just specifically your thoughts as we take it to that note that this could be the last Notre Dame-Michigan game for quite some time.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see that rivalry end. It's like you said, it's historic. It's nationally recognizable. So, it's a shame to see it go. It's gone away a couple times in the past. So I'm hoping sometime in the near future it comes back. It's kind of disappointing that Notre Dame scheduled Ohio State today for a home and home. So almost like a slap in the face. But that's okay. I hope sometime in the future it comes back. I think it's going to be a big test for Michigan this week. This is obviously their first, real measuring stick game as far as how far this team can go this year. It'll need a huge offensive performance. Last week against Appalachian State was fine, but when you compare talent-wise between Appalachian State and Notre Dame, there's definitely a big hefty gap there. So, yeah, like I said, it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a close game like they have been the past couple of years.
Hey, Joshua, any Michigan discussion, especially from a national perspective, starts at quarterback with Devin Gardner, all sorts of talent, escapability, that sort of thing, but key turnovers in crucial situations. Last year, he looked dynamite against Appalachian State. Your thoughts about Devin Gardner and what he may need to do to pull off a slight upset in South Bend this Saturday?
Yeah, I just think he needs to continue what he did last week. I don't think his accuracy is going to be at 93% or whatever it was last week. But I think if he continues on making smart choices, completing passes, doesn't have to. I think the big thing last year with Devin Gardner is that he probably felt like he had to do everything by himself or a lot of it by himself, and I don't think this is the case this year. I think they have a lot more weapons than last year. So if he can incorporate all those people and don't have to carve up Notre Dame on the ground as well as the air, I think they'll be okay in the long run.
For a lot of people that just watch the big games and again are clued in now on Michigan-Notre Dame but missed last week's game, possibly missed the bowl game, probably didn't see Michigan since maybe either Kansas State or Ohio State last year. Of course, Jeremy Gallon's gone. Devin Funchess has emerged as the guy who's just an amazing talent, but had the dropsies last year, but a good first game. So Devin Funchess is pretty much a known commodity. Talk about Funchess, but also that wide receiver core and who needs to emerge possibly as a second or third option.
Yeah, Devin Funchess, what can you say about him? He's a freak athletically. He's got some height and he's got weight, and he's not someone that you can easily arm tackle, as we saw last week. He just burst through a couple of defenders and made them look silly. So he's definitely, he's going to be a mismatch nightmare for a lot of defenses and a lot of defensive backs. So he's obviously going to be a huge target for Devin Gardner. I think the chemistry between the two is getting to the point where it was between him and Jeremy Gallon last season. So and how Jeremy Gallon's season ended last year, he had a fantastic year. So hopefully that's more of the same. Like you said, he has to nail down those catches. He can't have the dropsies like he did last year. And if he can nail that down, I think he can become a more all-around wide receiver and a huge playmaker. As far as people stepping up for the second wide receiver, I think it's kind of wide open right now. Currently on the depth chart, Jehu Chesson is the second wide receiver. He's a great. I personally, he's one of my favorite receivers on the team. He's just a hard-nosed guy. He's probably one of the best blockers on the team, who's incredibly underrated. He's out there. He's awesome against the pass block, and he's awesome against the running block. And he's also a gunner for the punt team, and he made a huge tackle last week. So he does it all for Michigan. Hopefully he can get more involved in the offense. There's another guy, Amar Darboh. He missed last year with a foot injury, so he's back fully healthy, and it'll be interesting to see how he performs. You know, the coaching staff kind of hyped him up last year to be a big playmaker, and he kind of had a freak circus catch in practice last year that was kind of publicized on YouTube. So let's see if we can live up. He can live up to the hype. I think he can. You know, Michigan needs it. Obviously, they'll need all the playmakers they can use. With Jake Butt out, especially too, you need another receiver out there since tight end pass catching tight ends are kind of limited on Michigan outside of Butt. But yeah, they've got a lot of potential weapons out there. They just need to step up and actually perform.
The running game, of course, we talked about it a number of times during the offseason, was flat out atrocious against really good competition last year. Smith and Green both got carries last week. Can you kind of compare these two running backs and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, they're quite similar in height and size, but they're also different in the way they approach the game. You got Devin Smith, who kind of wants to run through you, and you got Derek Green, who wants to, on some occasions, wants to run through you, but would rather run around you. It's they're both very talented. Obviously Derek Green is the huge national recruit, but I think a lot of people kind of underrated Devin Smith coming into Michigan. So I think they're definitely starting to see what the running game can be when the offensive line clicks. So this will be, like I said, this is going to be a huge measuring stick game as far as how the offensive line, will hold up against a much more comparable talent on the defense of Notre Dame.
Joshua, I know you like the defense. Very little lost in regards to experience and really playmaking and productivity from last year's defense. So kind of highlight us in regards to I'm going to see Michigan for the first time this year. Who should I be looking out for on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I think you've got the the regular guys back there. Jake Ryan, Blake Countess, those two guys returning. Solid players. Jake Ryan kind of missed probably about a quarter of the season last year with a torn ACL, but he came back in fantastic fashion. Blake Countess had a really nice year last year, had about 8 or 9 interceptions, tied for number 1 in the Big Ten. So they're getting, the good thing about Michigan's defense is they're gaining depth at the linebacker position and defensive back position. That's something that they haven't had in years. And there's talented depth there as well. I'm especially excited about the cornerbacks because you've got young guys like Jordan Lewis, Jabril Peppers. Everyone likes to talk about him, and especially the linebackers too. They're deep. Desmond Morgan, James Ross III, Ben Gideon, Royce Jenkins-Stone got his first start last week in his career, so he's worked hard and he's earned that start. So there's a lot to be excited about in that defense. I think if they can establish a decent pass rush from the defensive line, that's anchored by Frank Clark. I think they can do some damage in the conference this year. I don't think they're at Michigan State elite level yet, but I definitely think they can challenge for one of the top defenses in the conference.
Everett Golsen was a guy who led this Notre Dame team to a national championship game in 2012. Of course, he had the off-field issues that led to a missed 2013. During that 2012 campaign, we saw Golsen be kind of a game manager, a guy that had athletic skills, but turned it over to the defense and the running game, did Brian Kelly, to win games until late in the season. And he just got better and better each week and became more of a playmaker. Then we saw an extension of that, I believe, against Rice in week 1, where Everett Golsen really looked like an elite quarterback. It was Rice, but at the same time really made plays in the passing game. So just kind of overall your thoughts about Notre Dame and what you know about the Irish and what to look out for.
Yeah, I think obviously the biggest thing you have to look out for is Everett Golsen. I think he's turning into a solid quarterback. Obviously very athletic. His passing game has really come along. I think Michigan's always had trouble with a mobile quarterback, so it'll be interesting to see how Greg Madison schemes around that this year. I think they have the athleticism to match up with them offensively. I think obviously with the suspensions as well, it sounds like they haven't been back to, the 5 suspended players haven't been back to practice. So losing Kavari Russell, which I think is probably the best player on that Irish defense, is obviously going to be huge. So that affects how who's going to match up against Devin Funchess, because there's going to be a mismatch there. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think still it's going to be, they're both very close talent-wise. I think Michigan has a lot better team than people like to believe, and I think that all depends on the offensive line. So, with that, Irish still going to have a talented defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how each unit kind of matches up with each other.
Joshua Henschke doing some exceptional work for Maize and Brew. We go to that site constantly to get us updated on Michigan sports and football in particular. Joshua, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate the information and the insight.
Yeah, not a problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.